right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Denali Cougar Mountain webinar for today, for May 27, 2015. We're going to be talking about the benefits of financial reporting and how Denali can make the financial reporting that you run in your financial software, your accounting reports, how Denali can make that much easier for you and a lot more customizable as needed. My name is Jeremy Beislein. I am a trainer here at Cougar Mountain Software. I've been working with Cougar Mountain for the last couple years as a trainer, and I will be your presenter today. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to address, then please put those in the chat. Just type those into the chat log. And at the end of the webinar today, we will spend a few moments to answer all questions that have been put into the chat. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about the benefits of financial reporting and how Denali can make your benefits, your financial reporting even more beneficial with the customizable features that you have. In Denali, we have three main types of financial reports. We've got the financial statements, we also have the history reports, and then the control reports, which we also call the red flag reports to make sure there's no discrepancy in your accounting. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Now, whether you're a profit or a nonprofit firm, monitoring the financial health of any organization can make the difference between success and failure. And of course, the monitoring of your financial reports is done, the monitoring of your financial condition is done through financial reporting. And with Denali, you've got many great features on how to set up your financial reports. The first category of financial reports are the primary financial statements. Statements such as your income statement reports, your balance sheet reports. For nonprofit, they call those the statement of activities or revenue and expenses, or the statement of financial position. Those reports are all available in Denali, but the way those reports are presented is entirely up to you and how you set up your chart of accounts in your general ledger in Denali. So with that, I'll switch over to the general ledger module here in Denali to kind of give an example on how that's done. The chart of accounts uses an account number for each account that you set up, and the account number is set up under the numbering scheme that you set up for your organization, and that can be set up in any way that you choose. You can use numbers or letters in the account numbering system. If you're using the standard GAAP accounting principles for your account numbers, you probably just want to stick with numbers, such as your accounts that all begin with the number 1 would be your asset accounts, 2 liabilities, 3 equities, 4s are your revenues, and 5s and 6s are your expenses, and so forth. Those are just some of the standard GAAP accounting principles in numbering your chart of accounts. Now in Denali, you've got so many options on setting up those numbers. With our demo company, what we've done is we've set up a simple account numbering scheme where we have a 4-digit account number for each account. But we've also added a second segment to our accounts where we've added a 2-digit segment that we are calling a department. What's great about that is using segments, you can set up your chart of accounts to be designated by department in this case, or by location or zone, or whatever you want to designate your accounts for. Using that segment system, you can set up to 5 additional segments and label those segments whatever they need to be. Department, program, function, location, whatever you need to label those as. And then you set up the account numbering system, and how you set that up will determine how your reports will be ran in Denali. So with that, we'll just show a couple of examples of that here. So if we run a basic income statement report in Denali, this is just our basic overall income statement report for our entire organization. We see on here a simple report that lists all of our revenue accounts and the amounts for those accounts for the period that we ran the report for. And we see a list of each account and what the revenue is And then we go down to our expenses. This is each account and what the expenses are. Now, Denali lets you also run this report showing the account number. This will give you a better example of what we're talking about in the account numbering system. So we have our account number 4000 is our revenue account for general sales. Our segment 01 is for sales in department 1. So now we've got all of our revenue accounts for all of our departments here and the amounts for those. 4100 is the sale of sheds in our demo company. 4300 is revenue we receive for services. And 4500 are adjustments made to our sales for discounts that we give. And then of course our departments are also separated out on our income statement to show what those are. And we have the same with our expenses. Cost of goods sold accounts is our 5000 account, separated out by department. Now, the key on this is a lot of people might think, well, what's the advantage? I mean, you can see the advantage of separating them out by department, but the thing that Denali allows you to do is it allows you to run that same report by using the account filter. We may want to only see department 1. So we're going to see every account on our income statement, but it's only going to show those accounts for department 1. This will give us our net income on our income statement for department 1 only. And we've done this by setting up our account numbering system to correlate to that. So now we see we've got 4 revenue accounts in department 1 that all have amounts and 3 expense accounts. So our total revenue and our total expenses, we have a net income for department 1 only for our period January 2014. So by using the account numbering system, Denali allows you to run the reports exactly as you need for what you are looking for. If we want to see all of department 1's accounts, even the ones that did not have any postings to them, we uncheck the skip zero balance there, and we can run the same report now showing all accounts, even the ones with 0 balances. So for period 1, January 1st through 31st, we had no amounts for these particular categories. Okay, so your financial reports are basically as good as the information you receive out of them. That's the key with financial reporting in your business. And as you can see with Denali, you've got many different options to customize how you want those reports to show. What we're showing here today in our webinar today is the simple functions that allows you to bring up the reports to specify what you want on those reports. Denali has several options on the report type. Again, this is our income statement report that we're running here. We're going to run income statement. I ran the simple detailed report. If we want to see a comparison, then we can run a comparative report. This is part of our control and also just simply our financial statements. The comparison will show you the information for period 1, but it will also show you a comparison of what period 1 in the previous year had. So we have the current year for period 1 and the previous year. Now in our demo company, we started in 2014, so the previous year had no data that we had posted. But had we, if I was to run this report for 2015, which is going to be period 14 here, then you would see 2015 compared to 2014. Now again, our demo company has no data in 2015 posted yet. All of our data was done. Oh, we do have some. Look at this. Inventory adjustments here, administrative salaries. But as we can see, we can look at our salaries for 2015, our current year, and was the same category, the same account last year as what our comparison shows. But perhaps you might want to see a report that shows a little more detailed information for our accounts. Denali has several other options here. We can run a classified report which groups our accounts together based on certain account classes and groups. I'm going to show the account number here. And again, it's all about what's in the report and how the report is displayed. So now we're running a classified report that groups our revenue accounts by certain report groups. We have all of these revenue accounts under the sales group. This is our sales revenue. And then when we scroll down, we have an adjustments group here that will show us accounts that we have set up specifically for adjustments from our sales to be posted, such as any sales discount. So we have our total sales, total adjustments, and then we have our net revenue after our. So rather than listing all of our expenses out in just one big list, we have also grouped our expenses in different groups. We have our cost of goods sold group here. And then we have a gross profit on sales after we deduct the cost of goods that we have sold. So that leaves us a gross profit left over for operating expenses. And under our operating expenses, we have our various groups such as selling expenses, depreciation, administration, and other income and expenses. And then at the bottom, we also have a group that we have set aside for taxes. And the great thing about that is on your bottom line, you have your net income before taxes, then your provision for taxes, and the net income after taxes. So on this report, period 1, it doesn't look like we did so good with a $58,000 loss. So as you can see, that is the benefit of running your financial reports. You know, if I was running this business and showing a $58,000 loss for a period, I would need to check into that and see why are we losing money. But maybe there was a good reason for that. Since it was our first period, perhaps it was startup. So let's run the report for the entire year and see what it looks like. So for the entire year, we can go ahead and run our report. And to make that report not so many pages, I'm going to skip zero balances because we don't need to see everything. We can see all of our groups now, and this right here is only going to show accounts that did have activity for the year in our different various groups. Now our bottom line, hey, look at that. Year to date, for the whole year, we actually have a little bit of income. Not so much income. Hopefully we'd see, but at least we're not showing a loss now. So as you can see, with the financial reports that you can run in Denali, you have many different options. Just with the basic Denali setup and install, you don't have to customize, you don't have to do a lot of customizations other than setting up your chart of accounts to get reports that you need for your organization. All right, and then if you need to see the history of what made up those numbers, that's where our history reports come into place. So if we're running the same report, I'll just do a detailed one so that we don't. We're just going to run the same report here, just our basic detailed report, which doesn't group them in different groups. This is just all the account in income and expenses. This report is run for period 6, which is June 1st through 30th in our organization here. But let's say, for example, we have an account we're looking at specifically on our income and expense report. Here we have an expense account, legal and accounting. That number right there might jump out for some reason. Just for June, that seems like, it might seem like a little bit steep for that particular category. $1,743.98. That was a lot of money we put into legal and expenses. So where are the transactions that make up that number? What is it that is costing us $1,700 for the month of June in legal expenses? Now, of course, that probably isn't that much, but if we want to take a look and see, we're going to jump over to accounts payable, and we're going to run one of our history reports called the GL Expense Distribution Report. And we're going to run this report for the period on our income statement that we're looking at, which is June 1st through June 30th, 2014. Okay, and then the account that we're looking at is account number 6190. That's the account legal. That's the only one I want to see on this report. This right here is going to show us a detailed breakdown of what makes up that number on our income statement. So as you can see, here's the grand total of the total expenses on this report. And if we switch back to our income statement, as you can see, that's the number that we're looking at, $1743.98. So by running this special distribution report, we can now look and see what made up that number. Well, we had an invoice right here to one of our vendors, Jan Moore. She must be our attorney. This is our invoice number. This is the description of what that transaction was for and the date. And then we have our detailed line items on that invoice and when they hit the expense accounts in general ledger and the amount. We had another invoice on the same day, it looks like, with 3 detail line items. And those are the amounts of each one of those line items there. So grand total, we can see what made up that number on our income statement in a specified history report. And Denali has many other history reports you can run as well. That report we found in our accounts payable module. That one is designed specifically to drill down why the numbers on our income and expense reports are showing what they're showing. But you can run general history reports in Denali here in any module. Now in accounts payable, which is where we're at here, this report shows accounts payable history. And we can select what do we want to see on this report. Again, Denali has such great features that allow you to decide what you want to see on this report. Do I want to see a detailed history report that shows each line item for every invoice, or do I just want to see a history report that shows each invoice? Do I want to see a report with all vendors or only active or inactive vendors? Do I want to see all transaction types, or do I only want to see invoices or adjustments or any one of the transaction types in accounts payable? Maybe I only want to see a report for a specific vendor, such as Blue Cross. We'll run a report just for Blue Cross, and we'll see what that brings up here. And then this will show us a list of every transaction that we have initiated with Blue Cross. But since I ran it as a summary, all I'm seeing is the summary total. If I want to see a condensed report, that will give us a list of each transaction, but not all the detail on each transaction. It just shows the transaction and the amount. So now we have one transaction, and it was an adjustment amount, invoice, and a payment for Blue Cross. This will show us the totals for Blue Cross. So if we want to see the detailed, that lists every transaction and what the transaction was about for that one vendor. And there we go. Some of these transactions, as we can see, posted through from our payroll module based on the reference number here. So you can decide what you want to see on the report, because again, the key is the report is only as good as the information it contains. So if you want a report to drill down to specific information, or if you want to just see a general report with general information, you can decide that based on the criteria that you select when running your reports. And every report you run in Denali gives you all of these different criteria options. Accounts payable history, accounts receivable history. You can run the same report there. Accounts receivable has the aged analysis report showing open items. But again, when you run these reports, what is it that you want on the report? That is up to you. That's one of the great features of Denali. You can decide what you want to see. Your inventory reports, such as your inventory movement reports, you can decide what you want to see on this report. But if we want to see everything, we just run the report without selecting any criteria, and we see everything on this report. Now, since this is our inventory stock items, this is going to take a little while to run this report, and there we have it. This is our monthly movement report in the inventory module, which is one of our history reports along with one of our control reports, because this report also will show you what happened to our inventory items to help you reduce the loss of inventory other than through sales. Inventory leakage, for example. And that brings up the next category of our control reports. Now, Denali has a really nice category of control reports that you can find in the Denali controller module, which is the gateway to your organization. The controller module is where you set up your company and your users and run backups and utilities. Since the controller also is where you do utilities, this is where you're going to run your reports as well. They call those the red flag reports. You can run your accounts payable control report, accounts receivable control report. There's our expense distribution report we saw, missing check report from BankRec. These are the red flag reports that you run regularly in most accounting systems, and with Denali, they're all grouped together in one convenient location here that you can run these reports on a regular basis, such as monthly or quarterly, or however often you feel like you need to run these reports. And these reports specifically look for discrepancies in your accounting system, such as a sales price variance report. This report will show you any price variance from any sales that you have made in your sales module. So if we run this report, we're going to see, because when you ring up an item in the sales module, you're going to see the retail price that you have established in your inventory. But if the clerk changed that price for any reason, it's going to show up on this report. The item was sold at a different price than what you had set it at. And of course, this showed us no information, which is a good sign. That means that we had no price variances in January. Let's run it for the year and see if we have any. Look at that, no information to show. Boy, wouldn't it be nice? Oh, I know why, because I am in the fund suite on this. Let's switch to our for-profit suite, because I believe I have some in there. And try running that report again. Okay, so let's try our sales price variance report. We're just going to run it for the entire fiscal calendar up through today, and this will show us a list of all items that were sold. There we go. So on this day, this invoice number, this salesperson sold 2 of these items, but this was the price we were supposed to sell them for, but this is the price the salesperson sold them for, which means that she gave the customer a $5.41 discount for each quantity of items. Since she sold 2, there was a total discount of $10.82 for that line item. Same with the next, same salesperson on September 13th, or same item, and yes, same salesperson as well. So this will show you a list of all of the items that were sold at a different price than what you established the retail price at. And then you get a total variance for the report. There may be a good reason the clerk changed the price, so there might not be a problem with that, but at least you can see by running this report what's going on there. So that is just one example of the control reports that Denali gives you. Invoice tracking report. Now your control reports, what those reports are designed to do is to make sure that your accounts payable, this is an accounts payable control report, make sure that there are no discrepancies between the module and what your balance sheet is showing. So if we run a balance sheet report and compare it to our accounts payable control report, we can see if there's any discrepancies, because your balance sheet is your company's financial status. So if we run that report through period 20, 19, that's 18, that's what I need to know, because that's what I ran the control report for. And I want to see just a detailed balance sheet report. I want to see the account number. This will show us a comparison to make sure that there isn't anything going on in accounts payable that shouldn't be going on. So our main accounts payable account, 2100, has a balance of 1987.48. So what does our AP control report show? Our main account balance for AP1 does not match. So for KW, it's 16,870.40. So we have a discrepancy. of 1987, a pretty substantial discrepancy. So now we know there's a problem, so we need to do some research. We need to figure out why we're not matching. AP code P1 is 3068.42. AP code P1 is account number 2105, and it's also off a little bit. So yes, this is a way you can run these reports. And what we've done on our demo company is I've made these off on purpose so that you can see that there is a way to do a discrepancy. Now, if you run a history and you find that accounts payable is correct, based on the control report for each one of your accounts payable accounts, if these accounts are correct in accounts payable, then the discrepancy must be in general ledger somewhere, which is where our balance sheet comes from. So we would just simply need to run a journal entry to fix the discrepancy if needed, once we figured out what it was. So as you can see, Denali's financial reports are very important in maintaining your integrity of your finances for your company. And again, what's in the report is only going to be, the report itself is only as useful as what the report actually contains. So it is up to you what you want those reports to contain based on your account setup and your account filters, and you can decide based on that how you want those reports to come across. And you can run those separately by department or whatever segment you want to run those as. You can use the account filter to also separate out just the income accounts or expense accounts as needed, just by changing the first digit here on the account number, since all income accounts start with a 4. And now we're only going to see a report that shows income only and no expenses. Okay, so with that, switch back over to our demonstration here. We talked about the account setup and the integration from all of our modules to our accounts. We talked about our control reports and our history reports. Okay, so be sure to tune in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about the more advanced account reporting features in Denali, and we'll talk about that a little more. I just went over the simplified features today on today's webinar. So be sure to check back, and we'll talk more about how to group accounts together and using advanced report groups and things like that to make it easier to organize your accounts how you want and customize them how you want as well. Okay, so with that, we're going to switch the questions up here. Bring up our questions for anyone who has any questions. And George had a good question. Please show us the profit and loss report. Definitely, George. I'm glad you brought that up. That was under the income statement category. Let's run this report for the year. We have a report called a profit and loss report. What's nice about this report is it shows a comparison, a percentage. It groups the accounts together in the account groups, and it will show you a percentage of the total for that group. So for our current period, which we also ran it for the year, it also shows year to date on this report. Then you have all of the amounts. You know what, let me run that report just for one period so that you can see that compared to year to date. We don't need to run it for the whole year. I'm going to print the account number. There we go, that's a little better. So now we have current period and year to date amount. Current period and year to date. And then we have a percentage of how much our total revenue was on this account. And as you can see, we have one account that has 99.7% of our total revenue. At the bottom is our total revenue here. Cost of goods sold, we have the same kind of categories broken up here. Current period and year to date. And the percentage is broken down. Gross profit, percentage, and then our expenses and the percentage of all those. Yes, I'm glad you guys are pointing this out because there are a lot of great reports that Denali has in here. So we can run the profit and loss by Department 1 only if we want to do that. I'm going to run that for period 1, period 1. I want to run it for period 1 because in department 1, I think I only have activity in period 1 on my demo company here. So now we've got the same profit and loss, but it's only for our department 1. So that's all we're going to see on this report. And at the very bottom, we have our total income and expenses and our net profit, which is 58.49% of revenue. Okay, and Cindy asked to see the budget report, budget versus actual report. That's another great report. In Denali, you've got the option to set up a budget, which I did do a webinar on budgets prior. But once you've set up your budgets, you can now run your budget reports. So let's take a look at our budget report here. Year to date, 1 to 1, and let's just do 1 to 12 for the entire year. Current period is 1. Let's run our variance report on that. And I want to see the account number. See, it's based on what you decide you want on the report. You basically put in the criteria, and then you'll see the information on the report based on the criteria you put there. So here is our budget report. This report shows the actual amounts for the period, what we budgeted for the period, and the difference, the variance. Now, we set up our departments after we set up our budgets, so I didn't have budget amounts set up in my departments. But I do have, for example, our sheds here. We have a $4,500 budget, but I didn't distribute that among the departments, but our actual amounts are being distributed. So we've got several different options here on our budget. And then over on the right side, we have the total year-to-date amounts, which is what we put January through December on this report, because that's the criteria I inputted before I run the report. All right, so here's some expenses on our budget. We have expense, the actual amount, the budgeted amount, and look at that, we're right on budget that period. We have one expense here, our payroll taxes, actual amount, budget. Budget was more than actual, so we still have $243 left in the budget for that particular expense, which means we have 5.77% left. So that's good. Now, year to date, for the whole year, we went over budget a little bit. So that's not so good. So if you're running a budget system, then yes, Denali's got some great reports you can run for your budget as well. And the budget reports will also include the actual amounts so that you can compare and keep track of whether you're staying in budget or not. Okay. So that's a good question for Kim. In the price variance module, the variance amount is shown by dollar. Can it be shown by percentage as well? The price variance report we ran comes from our sales module. That report does not show the percentage in the variance. However, one of the advantages of Cougar Mountain, of Denali, is the reports are set up in Crystal Reports format, which means that they can actually be modified. And there wouldn't be too much of a modification in that case to where you could add a formula on the report itself to include that percentage. So that's one of the other advantages you get with Denali. It uses the Crystal format, which means that you can customize the way the report looks and feels, and any information that the report is missing that comes with Denali, you can go into Crystal and add that if needed. 6 segments, and you need to see your profit and loss by different things in each segment. Can I do that? Okay, so here's a question by Cindy. She's asking if you have an account numbering system set up with 6 segments, so you're maxing out Denali's segment options. But yes, you can run your profit and loss report by the different segments as needed. So you can do it by filtering it out. Let me switch to my fund accounting suite here if I still have that up here. Because in our fund accounting, I've got 3 segments. So when I run the report, revenue and expense report, in fund accounting, I got 3 segments, and I can use that account filter to filter out whatever I want in my fund accounting. If you had 6 segments, you would see all 6 of them, and you just put in whatever you want included on the report and leave the question marks for the wildcards. So it will only show what you replace with a question mark, or if the question mark is there, it's going to show everything for that segment. Now, fund accounting, in our demo here, our fund is our 3rd segment. So if we run the report by fund, it replaces that 3rd segment question mark with the fund. So yes, you can run those reports as needed, and that's what's great about it. And the more segments you do, the more detailed you can get on those reports. It becomes more complicated, but it gives you a lot more options for running your reports as well. All right, so with that, that concludes the presentation today. I want to thank you all for showing up today, and make sure you check out our series webinars coming up. We'll go ahead and open up the website here to show you the Denali webinar series. Next week, the webinar we have coming up is going to be our regular monthly webinar. We'll bring that up here, and I'll show you what that is in just a sec. So on June 3rd, we're going to be talking about how to find the out of balance in your balance sheet for existing Denali users. Anybody's welcome to attend the webinar. The following week is the advanced report options I mentioned. So be sure to come back on June 10th, and we can show you the advanced reporting options that Denali gives you, so you don't have to export your information to Excel to try to get the information you need, or to some other spreadsheet program. So be sure to check us out and come back. We're going to be running our webinars on a weekly basis from now on until further notice, based on the schedule you see on the website there. So be sure to check it out. If you have any questions or comments, make sure you contact your sales rep. You can also go to our website to see any of our past webinars. Be sure to check those out as well.